Like, so we can't have eyes and stuff? And then
Can you take a look at the sheet I just passed out to you? Okay? And stop talking. I'm talking. Okay? This is a series that has been published in a Catholic newspaper by Mr. Raymond D'Souza, who works for EWTN, the Catholic television program, and radio as well. And he also works for Human Life International, pro-life organization that helps to promote life and family values around the world. And this is an apologetics course, as you can see, Live Your Faith. And for 3 articles, he talked about the spiritual soul and does it exist. And this is part 1 of his 3-part on the soul. And as you can see, he begins by talking about atheists, agnostics, intellectually superficial people doubt the existence of the human soul. And well, can the existence of the soul be proved? And that is one of his objects in this article. And he talks about the last paragraph on the left-hand column. Everyone knows the difference between a living being and a lifeless one. Okay? Garden, boys playing with a puppy, near a fountain. Okay, the grass has life of its own. It's called vegetative life. Okay? Philosophically, a vegetative soul, but we usually refer to soul meaning just the human person. Okay? But vegetative life meaning a vegetative soul, because the Latin for soul is anima. Okay? The puppy has all of this, what the grass has, plus senses that make it aware of its surroundings. It's called sensitive life. That's what animals have. Actually, a sensitive soul. They can sense things with their smelling and seeing and tasting, which the plants cannot do. And finally, the boy has intellectual life, has a rational soul, able to think and reason. So his point here, the first full paragraph in the middle, every living being has within itself its own source of activity, its own power, its own vital principle. That is the soul. The last line in that paragraph, anima, the Latin meaning soul. Ella, we close that. We don't.
I'm trying to send it because I didn't have it in a Google Doc, and I'm putting it in a Google Doc. So
well, but
okay, I'll
do that later. You have to pay attention now to me, okay? We're reading the article. So, so he's saying that on the bottom paragraph of the middle column, how do we know anything? Well, our minds are a blank slate at birth. We don't know things at birth. Okay? We know what we know through the senses. Okay? Things we see, we hear, we smell, we touch. Okay? And the next paragraph, but there is another way we can know things that do not depend upon direct sensations, concepts, such as honesty, generosity, kindness. We don't hear these things, we don't see them, we don't feel them, touch them. They're understood by our mind. Okay? And that's why we say man is a rational animal. That's an ancient way of describing man. We're an animal, but we're above animals, normal animals, because we're rational. And we can think about thinking. That's what he says here. That's what I always say about my dog, Max. Max knew things, but he didn't know he knew them. He couldn't think that he was knowing something. He didn't have that ability. We do. And the last paragraph, right-hand column, we call this power the intellect, or reason, or the mind, okay, quite independently from the senses. And we can know concepts, beauty, truth, honesty, goodness, which the animals cannot grasp these things because they do not have an intellectual soul. And then he talks about the human will. Well, this is another way that we can know from reason that we have a soul. The animals don't have. The human will, that's the bottom right-hand side, that column on the right. Okay, the human will is also a proof of the soul's existence. Free will is a characteristic of the human person. Turn it over. Back side. Okay.
I don't have it.
You don't have a back side. Okay. Now you have a back side. Okay. Good. You didn't look on the back side until just now, I guess. Okay. And well, he's making the point here that if you go down 1, 2, 3 paragraphs on the left-hand column, we may ask, how does the free will work? How do we exercise it? Well, our wills are always choosing what we perceive to be good and avoiding what our minds perceive to be bad. We naturally seek happiness. The will, remember, the intellect is attracted to the good, and the will is attracted, the intellect is attracted to truth, okay? And the will is attracted to the good, because through the good we think we will attain happiness. However, because of our fallen nature, sometimes people perceive the good that may not be good. Okay? To take drugs and to become addicted to drugs, well, someone sees a good in this, feeling the high from drugs, but that's not really a good in truth. So we can be deceived. Our wills can be attracted to goods that are really not goods for us. Okay? The second paragraph from the bottom on the left, the junkie chooses drugs because he thinks they will make him feel good or happy. And his choice was free. But his perception of what the good was not really in accord with the goodness of human nature and what will benefit us. Okay? So the bottom left-hand side, so the free will is defined as the power to choose between 2 or more courses of action, each one appealing in some way to the mind. Okay? Because our mind is what directs the will. Okay? But nobody, because nobody ever chooses evil as such, we don't choose. People choose evil because they see a good in it. Okay? They don't choose evil as such. Because of that, nobody chooses misery and unhappiness, knowing that he will suffer with no rest or consolation, especially in hell for eternity. When we choose to do something evil, it is because there is an apparent good that appeals to us. So, and he goes on in the right-hand column, a moral choice. More concretely, he gives an example here. The Catholic politician is deliberating whether or not to vote for abortion in Congress. He knows that to vote for abortion is a serious sin, as he's an accessory to assassination of innocent children. But and that's why Cardinal Raymond Burke, he wrote an article a couple of years ago applying Canon 915 of the Code of Canon Law in the Church, saying that the ministers, whoever is distributing communion, has a duty and obligation to refuse communion to someone who is publicly sinning. For example, someone who's a politician who's publicly promoting the killing of unborn children through abortion, or promoting the enslavement of individuals, or same-sex marriage, because this goes against the common good. So I have a duty. If someone came into my church, I would go up to this official, a public official, and say, you are taking a public stand contrary to the truth and of the Catholic Church's teaching. Therefore, I cannot give you Holy Communion. I have to refuse you. And Cardinal Burke, he argued convincingly that in order for someone to get back into communion with the Church, back into the good graces of Christ and the Church, someone not only would have to turn around their position, but also to publicly make a statement explaining that I did wrong, now I'm back on track, in order to make reparation for the scandal they have caused by their taking a position in opposition to the Church on an important matter of life or family. Okay, so back to his example here: a Catholic politician deliberating whether or not to vote for abortion. He knows to vote for abortion is a serious sin. He's an accessory to the assassination of innocent children, but he may please the country's president, win an endorsement to run for the Senate if he's just a congressman. On the other hand, if he votes against abortion, he will fall into the president's displeasure. Okay? Forget about moving up in the party. He'll have a choice to make. So, but the choice should be in accord with the truth. Yes?
I feel like this person kind of viewed it wrong. He will please the country's president. He's pleasing the people when they make these decisions. These decisions are made off of like what like other people want, like in all like the big like majority rules kind of thing. This is not just to please a president.
Well, in the example he gave, no, it could be to please the president, because if the president, like we have now a president that's in favor of killing of unborn children through abortion, okay, that president may throw his support behind someone who's willing to go along with his agenda of being pro-abortion. That's the example he's given. Whether or not, I mean, you offered another example of maybe a motive why he would vote for or against something, how people perceive this. But he's just giving an example. It's not restricted. Okay, there could be other reasons why someone would want to vote. He could have said, well, if everyone wants this, okay, if everyone wants drugs to be legal now, okay, like in Colorado, you can go out and you can buy marijuana. Well, if you're a congressman or a state senator in Colorado, you could say, well, if I vote in favor of allowing drugs, people will re-elect me. If I vote against it, then I may be voted out of office. So that's another example. This is just an example. Okay? It's not,
Okay. I'm just pointing out that the wording there makes it seem it's just like, oh, pleasing the president, like pleasing, like almost like he's a king, please the king in a way. Well, it seems like he's leaning towards that a little bit, but it's everybody's view.
well, it's not necessarily that politicians keep in mind the head of their party and the president in power in voting. It's just it's just an example. Just an example. Yes, Angela.
I want to go on, like in American issues, the judge. If one falls down, the president picks who's going to be the next judge. That's pleasing the president. They share the same views. He's going to pick one of them. They go the same with him.
Yeah, Supreme Court justices. I mean, the president chooses someone who's going to be aligned with his views on things to be a Supreme Court justice. Here's another one. Okay, part 2 of his 3-part series. Okay, and this is going to deal with something we talked about the other day. I was debating whether to hand this out, and I thought.
You gave my phone.
Okay, good, because yeah.
I have an extra one.
You have an extra one. Okay, you may.
It's right here.
Thank you. Okay. As the soul exists. Okay. Okay. This is part 7. Okay, and please, you could sit up straight and clear. Thank you. Okay. He begins by talking about the evolution of species being an impossibility. Because he puts forth an interesting argument here. I never, I can say I never saw this, but a few lines down he says it's genetically impossible for living beings to have offspring with qualities that were not transmitted by its parent beings. I guess that's a good argument against evolution, because your children are going to have the same genetic makeup, your offspring are going to have the same genetic makeup as you. So to say something is going to evolve in something from one thing to another kind of goes against reason. I'm not a biologist, but I think that's probably a good reason, one of them. Anyway, he goes on to the last paragraph on the left-hand column. For an animal to evolve into a sensitive man, to be a turtle, ape, or a liberal politician, it would take a miracle. Miracles happen from outside of the being, not from inside. Okay? And in the middle column, he's talking about the difference between us and animals. Animals have sensitive life, okay, a sensitive soul. We have a rational soul. Man is rational. Animals are not, non-rational. Next paragraph, as a human being, you have, and every sane person have the faculty of reason, power of deduction, and this is a good point, we can arrive at new truths. Okay? That's what deductive reasoning can do. We can arrive at new truth. That's progress, say, scientifically. Animals, he makes the argument, he says scientists never invent natural laws, they simply discover them, use them for progress. But we apply what we know to make progress, to make deductions, and to find new truths in regard to science and so on and so forth. But right-hand column, top, but lower animals are confined to their same old ways. Okay? Next paragraph, bees make honey today as they did when Samson killed the lion. There's no change. They don't say, oh, we found some new technology, how to make the honey better. They don't have the ability to do that because they can't reason. They don't have that intellectual capacity. Okay? And the next paragraph, you can apply your mind to a variety of ways. Literature, music, dancing, computers. Your mind can pass from one topic to another. Your body does not participate in your thinking. Okay? Yeah, I mean, there are new ways of dance. I remember watching the Olympics. The fellas on the horse. That's what it's called, right? The horse. Well, they figure out how to do new twists, and like the parallel bars do with the women. They know how to. They learn new tricks to do. Okay, new things with their body. We do new dances. The floor exercises. I mean, they're doing things now that they didn't do 40 years ago. Just inventiveness. Okay, I can do this. I can, the ice skating. Now I think you're almost required to do the quadruple jump, which wasn't even conceived of before. 40 years ago, it was amazing if someone did a triple jump. So people keep improving, even in the things they can do with their bodies using ingenuity, dancing, for instance. Okay, animals do not do this. That's the last paragraph, right-hand side, because they do not possess free will. Their behavior is characterized by uniformity, doing the same things generation after generation. But man's behavior characterized by diversity, because we're rational. Now, backside of the paper, this is what I thought was interesting. Backside, okay. First full paragraph on the left-hand column. Okay. A hunting dog may hesitate. A hunting dog may hesitate between two trails to follow. I mean, I've seen this. I had a dog. Okay. We're out hunting, and the dog is like, okay, which way do I go? Is the dog thinking? No. Okay. He's not thinking. He is trying to find the strongest scent. His choice is based upon a material sense, okay, something in him, not an intellectual choice. The dog isn't doing that. The dog is acting on an instinct. The conclusion is simple. Man's soul is not material, but spiritual. We're not dependent upon our senses to make our choices. Okay? The soul's activities are independent of matter. Okay? And it is spiritual because some of its actions are independent of matter. Not all of them, but some of them. Okay? I mean, if we touch something hot, we're going to pull back. Fine. But if we're deciding what career to enter into, that's not dependent upon our senses necessarily. It may be a combination of things. I mean, if you want to be a cook, it may have something to do with your taste buds, okay, but not necessarily. So our soul's activities, independent of matter, many of them. And for instance, when you think of concepts like truth, error, beauty, ugliness, order, disorder, good, evil, these are concepts of our mind. Okay? We don't see, hear, taste, touch them. If our souls were like the animals, we would form ideas only in pictures and sensations, colors, taste, shape, so on and so forth. Okay? Next paragraph, animals have not shown the slightest progress on their own. They are not inventive. They're following their instincts. Okay? Now second to the last paragraph on the left. Now the will, man has free will, okay, can choose to obey or not obey the law. Animals do not have this faculty. The senses provide us with materials to form ideas, to guide our will, to make choices. Okay? Just like a painter who secures brushes, paints to paint a portrait. Okay? No animal can paint a portrait. Animals don't have that ability to do these things. So we can argue from reason about the existence of our souls, considering these arguments in this article. Okay, so this is part 3. I was at a priest meeting yesterday, and when meetings get boring, I like to have ORM, other reading material. So I can read through something, and while someone's talking, if I'm not, it doesn't really apply to me. I was at a priest meeting, and they were speaking about something that didn't have any application, so I went through these articles, and in fact, other priests were looking at me and saying, "What are you reading there?" "Well, that looks good. Send me a copy of that, will you?" So I just put something in my bulletin about the soul. Anyway, this is refuting objections to the spiritual soul's existence. First paragraph on the left, the last lines, truth is objective, not subjective. This is what he dealt with before, okay? The existence of God, the third topic, the human soul, okay? So he offers a few objections. The middle column, first objection to the fact that we have a spiritual soul, an intellectual soul. When you think, you use your brain, which is nothing but a sophisticated organ inside your skull. This is what a materialist would say. Okay? I don't believe in the spiritual realities. Everything we are able to do is it's our brain. It's our physical brain. That's it. Okay. So, however, if you suffer a blow stronger than usual and your brain is damaged, you enter into a coma, can no longer think. Conclusion thinking is just a secretion of the brain, because your brain and your mind are one and the same thing. That's the argument, the objection to a spiritual soul. Okay? Sounds like a reasonable one, right? Okay. Well, there's a way to answer this, and he does not really. A happy Scotsman plays his bagpipe during the night. The next door neighbor, unable to sleep, gets up with a knife, makes a big hole in the bag, breaks the chanter bag. Okay. The formerly happy Scotsman. I'm part Scottish. That's what Campbell's a Scottish name. Okay, but I can't play the pipes. He can no longer play his pipe. Conclusion: the Scotsman and the pipe are one and the same thing. No. The brain is made of organic matter. Yes. Anything it may secrete is also material, but our ideas, our choices, opinions, our dreams are not material things. They have no extension outside of our mind. They're completely different, distinct from the organic matter that makes up our brains. Can't be identified with the parts of our brain. Our ability to conceive of a beautiful image, okay, that I'm going to paint is not linked with any physical part of our brain. Okay? And the next paragraph, the soul and the body are most intimately united in a living person. That is why there is electronic equipment today that identifies certain movements in the brain related to certain states of mind or reactions to outside stimuli. Conversely, an act of the mind can have a corresponding reaction in the body. The person becomes unable to think. If the means of communication, the brain becomes injured, unable to function properly. Okay? This is like the Scotsman's musical knowledge, his talent to play the bagpipe. Okay? It's not found in the pipe, but the Scotsman needs the pipe in order, in good order to play. Okay? And so, second objection. Every living he says in his first article, okay, this is making an objection. You stated, this is the author, an accusation to the author, that every living being has within its own source of activity, its power, its own vital principle. That's what he said in one of the articles we just read. Okay, that's the soul. Okay, well, that source or power makes every living being tick. It's this called the soul. But strictly speaking, we only call the soul the vital principle of human beings. Usually, we don't refer to the living principle in plants as souls or in animals, but philosophically we can. The animal has a vegetative soul, the animal has a sensitive soul, man intellectual, okay? Properly, we usually only refer to soul and refer to human beings because of its intrinsically superior power of thinking. Okay? On the opposite side, the word for life, anima, means soul. Okay? Now, since animals are living and endowed with senses and have souls, why do you assume that their souls are not spiritual? Why should they have only material souls? I think Nevin asked this question, how do we know that the dog doesn't have a spiritual soul, that the dog isn't thinking thoughts that we just can't know about? Okay? Well, the answer, let us clarify our terminology. The animal life principle or soul, in its wider meaning, is not material in the sense of its brain, ears, and nose. You cannot see or feel it as you do the animal's eyes or ears or nose. It is a certain kind of activity, not spiritual, and as such has no extension in material terms. And yet, it is called material because it does not exist outside of the animal matter. It ceases to exist with the death of the animal. It acts exclusively with material activity. Its senses have no power of abstraction, dealing as they do exclusively with material realities. If one looks at for possibilities of the genre of animals having spiritual souls without our knowing it, it's like saying pebbles are alive with a life of their own, but we do not know it. Or there may be a living creatures inside the sun. Okay, you're just speculating on this. We can observe things and know their natures from our observations. Okay, we have nothing. There's nothing in the animal that would indicate to us that the animal is thinking a reasonable thought. Okay? So if you want to attribute thinking thought to an animal, well, you can do so. But he's saying that it is no more reasonable to do that than to attribute thought to a pebble or a desk or a piece of wood. How do we know this isn't thinking? Well, because we can observe it, and the burden isn't on us to prove that the podium or the desk or the dog cannot think. The burden is on the person who's saying this. Okay, well, show me evidence that it's thinking a rational thought. Okay.
Well, two things. Is like a question. How do you think people would be today if we couldn't speak or talk or just communicate the way we do? What if we communicated like every animal? We just made one sound or one sound with different levels of like pitch, but that's it. Like we couldn't because I can see these different like.
We could write.
What?
We could write.
No, but I'm saying we couldn't write. We couldn't do any type of communication whatsoever. This is really just kind of
hypothetical.
very hypothetical.
Yeah,
but I'm saying, what do you think it would be like?
Well, we would still have a mind, and this is. What do you think? We could still communicate and find other ways to communicate.
Find other ways. So
I mean, that communication is in a rational way is part of the evidence of us being human. And going back to the anthropic principle, so to speak, I mean, everything's, for us, God made us this way. I mean, that's what we believe. God made us in a way that we are able to communicate and express our thoughts in a rational manner. Okay? be inventive, have abstract thought. Even if we couldn't say words, we have an intellect, we would still be able to think abstractly. Taking in, looking at things and coming up with ideas. How to build a better bed to be more comfortable in. You know, animals don't have that capacity. We build animals for beds. Beds for animals.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I think that's just it, Colin. Like we, as humans, you know how you said, well, you know how you said, when you said that what if we had like one pitch or whatever, like animals?
Mm-hmm.
Well, as humans, since we're rational, we would actually try to find another way. Otherwise, animals, like they've been the same. They just haven't found a way to talk to us. So if they were rational, they would try to talk to us, right?
But their mind is a lot simpler though. I'm not saying they're just like super geniuses, but they just don't communicate with us. I'm saying the mind is a whole lot simpler than ours. And it's just, what if that's the only difference? It's just that it's simpler, not that we're completely like different from them.
well, we just go by what our observations tell us, and we reach a conclusion based upon our observations. So that's yes.
Okay. I just had some beef with this guy saying what he said about evolution. It's genetically impossible for living beings to have offspring with quantities that were not transmitted by its parent genes. I can have a carrier gene for Down syndrome, and as long as I meet someone who's got that same carrier gene, my kid could have Down syndrome. I don't have it, the kid does. What do you say about that? And then it also says,
But someone else could have the gene.
yeah,
Okay.
but both of us don't have Down syndrome, but our kid ends up having Down syndrome.
Okay.
So
So
that's nothing coming, that's something coming from nothing.
no, because one has the gene, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not coming from nothing. It's coming from one of the two people who are producing the offspring has it.
But it's like, that's not a trait of them. I mean, technically, yes, it's a trait that is something that leads to Down syndrome, but it's not a trait that they specifically have.
It's
That
a
they use in the
recessive
world.
trait.
Yeah.
It's in there.
But
Isn't that what that
Well,
is?
listen, I don't want to just argue that point. I mean, it's one argument. Okay.
Mhm.
So there are other arguments against evolution.
Well,
We can
I just think everyone, like all these things, like they're looking at evolution on the macro scale. They're saying, how could a dinosaur turn into a chicken? That's not possible. Okay. Obviously, it's not
That's
possible.
macroevolution, yes.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
we admit microevolution and evolution within the species. No one doubts that. Even I don't doubt that.
Okay.
That that's a possibility. Yeah, and I don't think he would either. What he's trying to refute there is what we call macroevolution from one species to another, which this fossil evidence has never supported in the Darwinian theory. And that's why Stephen Gould from Harvard came up with the theory of punctuated equilibrium,
So,
that there were these rapid jumps from one species to another, and we can't find fossil evidence. Well, there's no scientific evidence for this. You just have to believe it on faith. Okay. But that's
So then why does so for every pamphlet you handed out on evolution, it just broadly states evolution, not macro or micro evolution.
well. I think he's just assuming that you're talking about macro evolution, not micro. I don't know anyone who disagrees with microevolution, but I disagree with macro, not as a point of faith, but just as a matter of science, because I want to see the evidence that it's not there. So anyway, take a look at this, because this is kind of a little review sheet for us right here. Okay. This is from the Catechism of the Catholic Church, paragraphs 31 through 35. And the heading in the Catechism is Ways of Coming to Know God. Okay. 31, created in God's image, called to know and love Him, a person who seeks God, discovers certain ways of coming to know Him. These are called proofs for the existence of God, which we've been covering. not in the sense of proofs in the natural sciences, but rather converging and convincing arguments, which allow us to attain certainty about the truth. These ways of approaching God from creation have a twofold point of departure. The physical world, okay, which is based upon nature, okay, and the human person. We didn't deal with the human person yet. We're going to deal with the human person as a way of the existence of God as we cover this sheet here, okay. But 32, the world, okay, these are, now this is an argument from reason or from nature, okay. The world, okay, starting from, here are the classic arguments, movement, okay, the unmoved mover, okay, becoming, now becoming, that's another word for causality, okay. Every effect has to have a cause, and nothing can come from nothing. That's the idea. That's what becoming means, okay. Contingency, okay. We are contingent beings. We're, in other words, dependency. We are dependent for our being on someone else. Our coming into being was dependent upon our parents, okay. But God is not contingent upon anything, okay. The world's order and beauty, okay. You can look around and see the order and beauty, okay. These are all arguments from considering the world. One is missing here of the five. Do you know which one it is? More of a philosophical argument. It's degrees of perfection. That's kind of a philosophical argument. Well, there's something good and better. There must be a perfectly best model of goodness, of truth, of beauty. And that's why we use analogy to come to know God, okay? We know what good is, but we don't know what perfect goodness is. That's what God is. So we're using analogy. What truth is, what love is. God is perfect love. We know what love is from our experience. Okay? That's the argument from degrees of perfection. And using these, movement, becoming, contingency, the world's order and beauty, one can come to a knowledge of God as the origin and end of the universe. That's what our catechism teaches. Okay? St. Paul, okay, this is St. Paul, Romans chapter 1, verses 19 and 20 is, I think. Yes, 19 and 20. Okay. This is a quote here. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. Ever since the creation of the world, his invisible nature, namely his eternal power and deity, has been clearly perceived in the things that have been made. St. Paul is revealing here to us, it's God's revelation that, hey, you can use your minds and come to know that I exist, okay? That there is a God. The existence of God can be known through human reason. That's what St. Paul is saying here. St. Augustine takes up the challenge too. Because he says, Rico, why don't you read for us? St. Augustine. This is St. Augustine's famous line. Question the beauty.
Question the beauty of earth. Question the beauty of the sea. Question the beauty of the air distending and diffusing itself. Question the beauty of the sky. Question all these realities.
Keep going.
Keep going. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll respond. See, we are beautiful. Their beauty is a profession. These beauties are subject to change. Who made them, if not the beautiful one? Who is not subject to change?
So St. Augustine, he was using an argument from beauty to arrive at a conclusion that there must be a God, the origin of all beauty and the model of all beauty. Okay? Kind of an argument from perfection, so to speak, okay? But also from just order and beauty along with that. Now, that's what we just covered. That's from the world, looking at nature. Okay, but then there's an argument in regard to the existence of God from the human person. Okay? That's number 33. With our openness to truth and beauty. with his sense of moral goodness, freedom, the voice of his conscience, his longings for the infinite, for happiness, man questions himself about God's existence. In all this he discerns the signs of the spiritual soul, the seed of eternity we bear in ourselves, irreducible to merely material, and have its origin only in God. So the fact that we have a soul is an argument for God's existence. That's what is being put forward here, okay? In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, amen. Glory be to the Father, to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, ever shall be, world without end. Amen. May Almighty God bless you and keep you, the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.